Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, campaigning is in full swing in the constituency of Richmond Park, where voters will go to the polls this Thursday to choose their next MP. Our Ellie, who's come down with a nasty case of by-election fever, has made her way all the way from Westminster to south-west London to find out more.
There are 630 red and fallow deer in Richmond Park, a piece of countryside on the outskirts of London that spans 2,500 acres. The constituency is one of the wealthiest in the country, and according to anti-Heathrow expansion campaigners, 217,000 planes fly over the top of the area each year. And that's why this by-election came about. The then Tory MP Zac Goldsmith resigned from Parliament and his party because of opposition to the government's position on the expansion at Heathrow. But just as there's more to the constituency of Richmond than Richmond Park, the other candidates say there's more to this by-election than Heathrow. Zac Goldsmith is standing as an independent on that anti-Heathrow message, and the Conservatives aren't fielding a candidate. Effectively, they want him to win. But all the other candidates agree with his position on the airport. Is this not a pointless by-election?
No, because if I lose this by-election, Heathrow will win. So a vote for me is a vote against Heathrow expansion. It's not just that, clearly. It's a vote. It's a vote on the basis of the record of my activities in Parliament and locally over the last 6 years. But I know that people think I've been a good MP.
Zac Goldsmith campaigned to leave the EU, unlike 70% of voters here who wanted to remain.
Who's next, Claire?
The Lib Dems see that as an opportunity and have been campaigning hard on their pro-EU stance. They insist the result will be close.
As far as the local voters are concerned, it appears to be about Brexit. That's the thing they really want to send a very clear message on. People locally in the referendum voted overwhelmingly to remain, and Zac Goldsmith voted to leave. So I think people want better representation on this issue.
UKIP and the Greens are also not fielding candidates here. The Labour Party is, even though several senior Labour MPs didn't think they should, to avoid splitting the anti-Goldsmith vote.
I don't know what is meant by splitting the vote. Labour has a bedrock of support here. We polled a decent amount in the general election. In the mayoral election, we polled 24% against the Lib Dems 7%. So for them to say, choose a candidate and then say, oh, actually, we think you ought to stand down because it'll give us a better chance of winning, that's a nonsense. That's not what politics is about.
Labour also insists it's Brexit that's the key issue on the doorstep. But rather than take the candidate's word for it, we asked around.
Well, Europe has passed. That's history. So it really is about Heathrow.
It's a vanity project.
Is it? So it's not about Heathrow?
No, it's about Brexit.
Well, the two issues are Brexit and Heathrow expansion.
Okay. And both equally important?
Probably Heathrow extension's more current, yeah.
There are 8 candidates in total. Richmond Park goes to the polls on Thursday.
Ellie Price reporting, and here is the full list of candidates standing in the Richmond Park by-election. You can also find out more about the by-election and the key issues on the politics page of the BBC website. That's bbc.co.uk/politics. Now, what does the election of Donald Trump as US President mean for efforts to tackle climate change? Well, as in many other areas, we don't know yet exactly what policies the President-elect will pursue when he takes office in January. But let's have a listen to what he had to say on the subject when he was speaking during the campaign.
It's time to put America first. We're going to put America first. That includes a promise to cancel billions in climate change spending for the United Nations. A number Hillary wants to increase, and instead use that money to provide for American infrastructure, including clean water, clean air, and safety. That's what we want. We're giving billions and billions and billions of dollars, President Obama, giving billions and billions of dollars. We don't even have any idea where it's going.
Donald Trump campaigning there. Well, we're joined now by Bjorn Lomborg. He's the president and founder of the Copenhagen Consensus Centre, which is a US-based economics and international development think tank, and by the co-leader of the Green Party, Jonathan Bartley. The rhetoric was clear, Jonathan Bartley, as it was on many subjects, but of course the action we have yet to see. What is the evidence so far that Donald Trump will be a disaster in your mind, as far as climate change is concerned?
Well, I think his plan isn't great. It's pretty flawed. He seems to want to be rejuvenating the coal industry. You know, he talked about cleaning air. He's not going to do that if he invests in more coal mines. But I think what is clear is that the movement to tackle climate change is far bigger than he is. It's a global movement. It involves business, it involves social movements, it involves now the military have urged him to take climate change seriously. And so it's much bigger than his plan, and we need to see it in that context. It makes really, really good sense. Now renewables are cheaper in some areas of the world than fossil fuels, and the price is coming down. It makes business sense to invest in clean technology,
sure,
clean up our own.
But do you think he'll be a disaster as far as tackling climate change is concerned?
His plan will be a disaster. Will it impact the global movement against climate change? I think the global movement against climate change is far bigger and far stronger.
I mean, Bjorn, Donald Trump has called climate change an expensive hoax and a total con job. He said it was made up by the Chinese. Does that not worry you?
Yes, that's just wrong. So, look, it is a real problem, but the argument that I try to present, and I think that's important to put in context, and I think maybe Jonathan and I would actually agree on that it's not really a question of what you think, but it's what you end up doing.
Sure.
And he's talking about cancelling the Paris Agreement. A lot of people have been really, really worried. But what we have to remember is the Paris Agreement was always ever only a tiny bit of the way to solve global warming.
Right.
So the real issue here is...
So you're not worried about getting rid of the...
No, the point here is he's also talking about that we can actually invest a lot more in research and development in green energy.
All right.
And that's fundamentally the thing that's going to solve global warming.
Let's take the Paris Agreement, because it's fairly recent. How big an impact would that have if he just cancels the US's involvement in it?
Well, there are 197 countries that signed up to the Paris Agreement. It's something that's taken a long time to pull together. It's something that's got the backing of business. It's got the backing of economists. It's got the backing of social movements. It isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And that's why built into the agreement is this review process. Every 5 years, they'll look back, see what the progress is being made.
Beyond says it's tiny in the
No, I mean, I think it's hugely, hugely significant. I don't think it goes far enough. There's a lot more that we need to do. But, we've got to look at something that's much bigger than the Paris Agreement, and that is the economics of it.
Right.
And it's very clear that there is, a movement within business, and a business is turning around to Donald Trump and saying, no, actually, we want to invest in this green technology because it's good for us.
Right. He says it's very significant, the Paris Agreement, because, these were the commitments made by 190 or so countries to reduce emissions of carbon dioxide pollution, America being, one of the world's biggest polluters. If they're not part of it, it doesn't work.
Probably not. And the reality is, if you look at what the UNFCCC, so the guys who actually organized the Paris Agreement, they tell us that the total Paris Agreement from 2015 to 2030 will cut about 56 gigatons of CO2. To most people, that doesn't really mean anything.
No.
But if you want to get to 2 degrees, which is what everybody talks about...
Yes, so that was the big stated...
You need to cut 6,500 gigatons. So essentially, it gets us less than 1% of the way. So this is not really the issue. The real problem, that's where I disagree strongly with Jonathan, is that he would like us to believe, but renewables are already cost effective, it's already, we're really getting going. No, the trouble is that we still have to subsidize it dramatically. The International Energy Agency estimate that we subsidize solar and wind at the tune of about $93 billion this year. And over the next 24 years till 2040, we're going to spend $3.3 trillion on subsidizing solar and wind.
Wow.
So no,
and of course, there are
cheap.
trillions of dollars being subsidised in the fossil fuel industry. Fossil fuels still take huge subsidies. Plus, you've got all the knock-on effects of cleaning up all the pollution. Even Donald Trump admits that in his piece that we need to clean up the air.
But why should we spend all that money on renewables?
We need to spend the money where it's most cost-effective. And what's absolutely clear is the cost of renewables is coming down. It is the future. And are we? The climate. I think there's a climate consensus here. With respect to Bjorn, who, by his own admission, I think is a bit of a controversialist. He's looking back to kind of 20th century economics. He's not looking forward to the challenges of the 21st century.
It's not 21st century economics to say we want something that actually pays off. The trouble is, as you point out,
it's already paying off.
No, it's paying off when you get subsidies. When you remove the subsidies.
Bloomberg have just come out with a report saying it's absolutely clear that now renewables are getting to the point where it's competitive. It's undercutting fossil fuels. Why would you invest in
There's a lot. Don't talk over each other. Go on, Bill.
Right, there's a lot of people who want to believe that. It would be wonderful, but
the financial analysts.
No, No, look, every country where you cut the subsidies, you've seen dramatic drop-offs of investments. And if the International Energy Agency tells us we're going to actually be spending more subsidies over the next decade and a half every year on solar and wind, that's not because it's competitive, that's because it's still uncompetitive.
Are you saying Bjorn's figures are wrong?
I'm saying, I am saying his figures
which figures are wrong? Are we subsidising, or is the world subsidising?
It's a sin of omission, which is not pointing out that, for example, the point is that the fossil fuel industry is subsidised to a huge extent.
Let's
and when
put
you
the
remove
fossil
the
fuel
subsidies from the fossil fuel industry, every industry is going to.
But the question, the sin of omission here, if you take the fossil fuel industry out, just looking at the cost effectiveness of the amount of money being invested in renewables, it's cleaner, most definitely, but is it cost effective on the figures that Bjorn is using? With the subsidy, and then when you take it away?
It depends what you're trying to achieve. And absolutely, on the basis of it's going to tackle climate change, it's going to democratise the energy supply and bring it down, to the local level where people have control in, for example, developing countries, where it's creating circular economies, resilient local economies where people can create industry, create good jobs.
And that is a price worth paying, Bjorn, until, and as such, that the price has come down for renewables. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to make that conversion to a more renewable.
And the price is already there. Let's be clear, the price is there now.
Well, he's saying it's not.
And Bloomberg analysts would disagree with him.
Yes, but of course they would. They're the New Energy Foundation. They want to believe this. But the reality is, it's not cost effective.
Big business disagrees with you.
Hang on. Let Bjorn finish.
2 points. If you ask people in developing countries, they strongly want renewable. They strongly want a reliable energy. They want 24/7. There's a wonderful story in Darnay in India where Greenpeace came and gave them renewable, and they protested when they inaugurated for the minister and said, "We want real energy, not fake electricity." And the real point here is, and that happens across the world. Of course, they want that.
The point about the Sustainable Development Goals is that they are being led by communities, and sure, there'll be mistakes made. But the point is, you're advocating a very top-down, and we're advocating a very bottom-up process of development.
At the end of the day, unless we get cheaper green energy, and that's what the US
But how will we get cheaper energy unless there is investment and unless there is government support?
Through research and development.
Right.
That's what's happened in the US with research and development into fracking. We've seen a dramatic switch from coal to gas because gas was cheaper.
And where's that research and development going to come from? It's going to come a lot from the private sector that knows we've got a thriving industry and knows it's worth investing in.
Right. Isn't the problem that there are vested interests on both sides? But in the end, if we are to move to a cleaner energy sources, then there does need to be some high-level government backing for some of these agreements.
Just two observations, what I've heard, gentlemen, and you can see both sides. One thing I would caution you on is that experts in this field and research in this field has got previous. They've made the facts fit the politics often, and be careful. And secondly, and this is the big one, when I was Minister of State for Trade, I used to talk to these developing countries on their business programmes. Always, it was about my words, not theirs. I'm going to carry on polluting because you did for 200 years, and I'm going to carry on because you're not going to stop my wealth creation like you created wealth. If that man wants to make America great again, I would suggest the way to do this is be the world leader on R&D into clean energy, and then be the thought leader with India and China. Because the three of them together are basically the polluters. And if America could lead and say, look, we're going to do this together, and frankly, don't worry about 190 countries.
But they might persuade the other two big polluters. Right,
Make America great again, Donald. You can do it by thought leadership and big R&D.
We're going to have to end it there, but thank you both very much.
I've been getting away with it all my